What's up, wrestling fans? I'm Steven from the Hills Maniacs, and as you know, this past weekend at Survivor Series, CM Punk made his shocking return to WWE after, being in AEW for a couple years and just being away from WWE for about 9 or 10 years at this point. It was really surprising to see him make his return to the company. He was very vocal with, I guess, how much he hated the company back when he was here, and that's kind of the reason he was let go, or he ended up leaving, or whatever happened there. And he had a lot of hatred for the company before this point. But now he seems to be back and on better terms with everybody and Triple H and that sort of thing, especially without Vince McMahon in charge. And a lot has changed in WWE since CM Punk left. Obviously, it's been 9 years, like I said. There's been a lot of different superstars in and out of the company since then. A lot of people on the current roster that CM Punk has never even encountered or fought, at least in WWE. A couple of them he might have fought in like Ring of Honor and that sort of thing. But that's what I'm going to kind of be looking at today. I wanted to talk about some sort of dream matches in a way, or just some superstars that I would like to see CM Punk face now that he's back in WWE. So without further delay, here are my top 10 superstars on the current WWE roster that CM Punk should face now that he's back in the company. Before I get started, I would like to say that I will not be including Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns on this list because I feel like those might be obvious ones that WWE might be leaning toward doing anyways. Especially since Seth Rollins is the World Heavyweight Champion right now and Roman Reigns is the Universal Champion. It seems like they're probably going to be planning to have Punk fight for one of those championships somewhere down the line. So I kind of feel like that's a bit obvious. And also I tried to include people he's never fought in WWE before, and that's kind of also why I'm not including Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, because I think he might have fought them back when they were the Shield, or something along those lines. I'm not exactly sure who all he fought that many years ago, like on his way out or in his last year of being with the company. So those are people I'm not including on this list. Now let's get started. The first one that I would like to see CM Punk face is Kevin Owens. I don't know why, I just get this feeling that like those two would have really good chemistry in the ring. I don't know if I want to see like a rivalry between the two of them where they have like multiple matches against each other, or just maybe like a one match feud or something along those lines. I just think they could work really well together. I'm not sure if they competed against each other in Ring of Honor, but I haven't watched Ring of Honor at all, so I'm not including that anyways. I'm solely talking about, in WWE, these two have never met in the ring. I don't even think Kevin Owens was in NXT at the time, even that CM Punk was here in the company 9 years ago. I'm not even sure if NXT was even here yet. It might have still been FCW at the time. I'm not quite sure. But I think like the way Kevin Owens is compared to CM Punk, they're both that type of superstar that is kind of like an in-betweener. You get like the heel and the babyface. They're both good at both of those kind of roles. Like we've seen Kevin Owens, right now he's currently a babyface. Like the people really enjoy seeing him in the ring. He's kind of funny a little bit with the backstage segments and that sort of thing, but he's also really good in the ring, and he's serious and a conflicted character, and he kind of reminds me of Stone Cold Steve Austin when he was back in the day. And he has that same attitude where like people love to hate him, but they also love to love him. He's kind of in between. And CM Punk is the same kind of way. Like we've seen him as a babyface before, and people got behind him then. We've seen him as a heel, and people were behind him then. He kept his own fans throughout the entirety of his heel run as WWE champion. A lot of people really supported him. People have still supported him even when he was gone. Like he mentioned on Raw, that people still kept chanting his name and that sort of thing. So these two colliding together in the ring, I think would be really fun to see, and I think they could pull off a lot of really awesome matches. Maybe they could bring in their ROH origins like into the rivalry or the feud or whatever, depending on the route that they go. This could be one of those matches where it's not for a championship, it's just kind of like a fun feud that maybe some fans would want to see. I think that would be really interesting, especially, like given how good Kevin Owens is in the ring, and maybe CM Punk is a bit rusty right now. I know he did compete in AEW, but he's not the same CM Punk he was back in the day. So I think like maybe that'd be a good like starting feud for Punk back in the company would be to face Kevin Owens to sort of get back in the saddle type of thing. And Kevin Owens is that type of guy to do it. He will put someone over, I feel like. He's been doing that for years. I just feel like he's that type of superstar. So that's my first one. The next one is on a similar note to Kevin Owens. That would be Sami Zayn. I feel like Sami Zayn is really high in the company right now. You know, a lot of people are really behind him. He's got that like Daniel Bryan sort of vibe right now where like people want him to become the world champion, and they were behind him especially during the Bloodline stuff where he was with Roman Reigns and everything. And now even he's still maintaining that babyface mentality. Even as a heel, he was still pretty good at portraying that character. And I think him versus CM Punk, they could have a lot of fun matches together as well. I think that would be something a lot of fans would really get behind. And like I said with Kevin Owens, you know, that could also be like a nice little starting feud. If they wanted to turn CM Punk heel, I'd say put him against Sami Zayn. If they wanted to keep him as a babyface, maybe put him against Kevin Owens or some of the other people on this list as well. They could go either route with CM Punk, you know, so I kind of like, these would be some good starting feuds for him now that he's back in the company. Another really interesting feud, I think, would interest a lot of fans and would be really entertaining to see is CM Punk versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Especially given what Shinsuke has been doing with his latest heel run and stuff. I would have preferred to see him beat Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title because of how well they were building up this character, but since they aren't, like maybe putting him in a feud with CM Punk would have been the better way to go and would have really heightened Shinsuke's new heel character. I mean, they got him going against Cody Rhodes now, I guess, but CM Punk versus Shinsuke is probably a WrestleMania-worthy match, I'd say. I don't know if a lot of people would have wanted to see that. I don't know if they've collided elsewhere before or competed against each other in other promotions or whatever, but the current version of Shinsuke Nakamura in WWE versus this new, I guess, like enlightened sort of version of CM Punk now that he's back in the company and everything, I think those two would clash really well. And I think either one of them could put the other over. I think if CM Punk won, you know, Shinsuke would look good in defeat. And if Shinsuke won, Punk would look good in defeat. And maybe they can have some follow-up matches and that sort of thing. It's kind of on a similar style to when Shinsuke fought AJ Styles. That was something a lot of fans were really looking forward to. And they had some really good matches as well, even though they fought each other like 6 times. But I mean, WWE overdid it a little bit. Hopefully they wouldn't overdo it here. But I think at least this current heel version of Shinsuke would be a really good rival for CM Punk. I don't know about like when Shinsuke was a babyface earlier this year and even before this and stuff, where he wasn't really that interesting of a character and wasn't really that interesting in the ring, at least in my opinion. Now that he is, I feel like that would be a really good feud to go against CM Punk. And speaking of really good heels that the company currently has, Drew McIntyre I feel like might be an interesting one as well, because he's this bigger, more brutal superstar that I think would definitely throw CM Punk around, and especially with the way Drew is behaving now, where he's starting to slowly turn into this heel. And I'd say he fully turned into a heel this past Monday on Raw when he attacked Seth Rollins, but with this current version of Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk, it'd be similar to like when Punk fought like Hangman Adam Page or Jon Moxley in AEW, or those really tough and brutal opponents that test CM Punk's limits and that sort of thing. I think Drew McIntyre would be good for that. Maybe even just like a one-off like pay-per-view match or something. I hate to see Drew losing a lot, but I think that'd be a nice first feud for Drew's new heel gimmick as well. I mean, I know he's probably going against Jey Uso and maybe even Cody Rhodes somewhere down the line, but after that, maybe a nice feud would be for Drew McIntyre to face CM Punk. Now here's where things get really interesting. Honestly, I'd like to see CM Punk versus Chad Gable. I've been really impressed with what Chad Gable has been able to do on the main roster, not just as part of Alpha Academy, but his matches with Gunther were some instant classics that I think people will really look back on And he reminds me a lot of Kurt Angle when he was, back in the Attitude Era and stuff, that young Kurt Angle, that all the moves that he did and those sort of things, and his fighting style is what Chad Gable does a lot of. And I think CM Punk would put Chad Gable over really well, and they could have probably a 30-minute classic of a match, just the two of them competing against each other, even if it's not for a title or whatever. I just feel like a nice like Raw main event or something would be CM Punk and Chad Gable, because Gable has shown that he's able to do that sort of funny stuff that he does with the Alpha Academy and Akira Tozawa that they're doing now, but also when he's in the ring, he's like a totally different person. And I think a lot of people would really get behind that kind of match. I don't think either one of them would look like a heel by beating the other one. If Chad Gable won, he'd look really good in his victory. If Punk won, I don't think people would think of him as a heel. I just think it'd be that fun babyface versus babyface, go out there, have a nice like 30-minute Raw main event or something. I think those two, especially Chad Gable, I think he could pull that off and have a really good match with CM Punk to get Punk back on the map in WWE and to sort of elevate himself even further, maybe even do that to get him back into the Intercontinental title picture or something by having a victory over CM Punk, or at least a close loss to CM Punk, something like that. I feel like that's what they need to do with Punk, is use him to elevate these current superstars and also elevate Punk at the same time to get back into that original character that he once was, and this would maybe be a good way to do that. I feel like the next superstar I think CM Punk should face is actually Logan Paul, and that's for two reasons. Because one, I think Logan Paul has been really impressive in the ring, even though he wasn't originally a wrestler, he was just a celebrity and that sort of thing. A lot of people have been really impressed with all the work he's done in the ring since he became a WWE superstar. And he's put on some really good matches. His match with Ricochet, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, all those were really good. And I think him and CM Punk would be a really good match, just because you'd have the fans on Punk's side because they really hate Logan Paul. And I think that would elevate Punk even more by beating Logan Paul. And then you also have the added interest of Logan Paul being the United States champion, which is the only title that CM Punk hasn't held yet in WWE. He's almost a Grand Slam champion. He's been Intercontinental champion, Tag Team champion, World champion, all that back in the day when he was originally here. So you have that added bonus to having this match as well, where Punk could be the one that beats Logan Paul or something, maybe at WrestleMania or whatever, wins the United States title, and then completes that collection and becomes one of the other superstars that have become a Grand Slam champion. So you kind of have two different things there with that match. And I just think it'd be fun to see Logan Paul flying around the ring, taking on a veteran like CM Punk, and both of them have the sort of, UFC or boxing background, that kind of thing. They could incorporate that into it as well. They were both celebrities, like outside of WWE, I guess. So you kind of have that fun dynamic there as well. And speaking of champions, I don't know why this was the first one that came to my mind when I was thinking of who to put on this list to face CM Punk, and that's the current Intercontinental Champion Gunther. I don't know why. I feel like that would be a really awesome match between the two of them, or even a really awesome feud. Punk being the one to dethrone Gunther would be really amazing to see, I think. And plus, the way Gunther competes in the ring with that hard hitting, like where he chops everybody and that sort of thing, I think Punk having to sort of overcome that would make for a nice like WrestleMania moment, I feel like, or even maybe like a SummerSlam main event, or maybe not even a main event, but like a SummerSlam match or something along those lines. I think that would be a lot of fun to see, and you have the Imperium stuff added to it as well. All of that would make for an interesting rivalry, I feel like, and maybe a series of matches, because nobody seems to be able to beat Gunther, so like having Punk be the one to do it, I feel like would elevate both of them. It would show that Gunther had to literally, or the only person that could beat Gunther was someone from outside the company coming back in. It's sort of like with Roman Reigns, like Roman hasn't lost the title all this time, he'll probably lose that title to CM Punk, but having Gunther in the same sort of situation, shows how good he really is, where like nobody in the company has been able to beat him, so they had to call on an outsider to come back just to beat him and take his title off of him. I think you have that kind of story there as well, where that makes it feel slightly more important. It's not just a one-off like random Raw match between Gunther and CM Punk. I feel like a nice genuine rivalry between the two of them, culminating in Punk beating him for the title, would really serve both of them really well, I feel like. Another interesting one that I had was AJ Styles versus CM Punk. First of all, the first thing that popped in my head when I thought of those two was the Luke Gallows connection, because Luke Gallows used to be part of the Straight Edge Society with CM Punk, so you kind of have that going there, and now he's with AJ Styles in the OC and that sort of thing. I think there'd be a kind of funny meeting there between the two of them, like a funny reunion there where like he used to be with Punk and now he's with Styles, and you can have that kind of play into the rivalry as well, because that is also technically the same Luke Gallows character, I guess, but this one's more like, he's been gone too and came back and everything, but I think that's kind of like, it'd be kind of funny just to see that interaction between the two of them, I guess. But just the thought of two superstars like CM Punk and AJ Styles facing each other, that's definitely a WrestleMania match if I've ever seen one. Especially with both of them having been in the business as long as they have. I mean, I know Punk wasn't in WWE as long as like AJ Styles has been wrestling, and Punk left professional wrestling altogether after he left WWE for a while, but I feel like they've both been around for a long time in the wrestling world, especially, you had Punk, both of them were in Ring of Honor. AJ Styles has been in Impact Wrestling all this time, and you had Punk in WWE for a while there, and now he's back and everything. I feel like they're both sort of veterans, and they're both characters that, when people think about them, they're certified Hall of Fame, I'm sure. I'm sure the fans would love to see CM Punk in the Hall of Fame, and AJ Styles for sure. So these two colliding with each other, these two almost veterans facing each other in the ring, I feel like would be something the fans probably aren't expecting to see, but I think it would be a lot of fun to see those two competing against each other, especially, I mean, that's like definitely a WrestleMania quality match, like I said. Even if it was for a title or not for a title, whatever, just that one-time matchup, I think that might be something you might never see again. So I think they should pull the trigger definitely on that rivalry. I don't know exactly what AJ Styles is doing now. I think he's injured or something. He hasn't really been around on SmackDown that much. But I think whenever he comes back, they should do this match at least once, just so the fans sort of get to see it before either Punk ends up leaving pro wrestling again because something happens or whatever, or before AJ Styles ends up retiring because he's been around for a while. I think that would be a lot of fun, and Styles has proved he can still go in the ring, and I feel like they would carry each other very well in a match against each other as well. Now, since they brought CM Punk back, I think you could call CM Punk a megastar. He's that major superstar that left the company and came back, has made an impact on the wrestling world in one way or another, returned to wrestling after 7 years of being out of action. I'd say he's a megastar, but there is one other megastar in WWE that might have something to say about that. I'm of course talking about LA Knight. Yeah, I think LA Knight versus CM Punk would elevate LA Knight for sure. I know they already put him in the Universal title match, and he lost, and now his momentum seems to be depleted somewhat. Like now he's kind of just in a feud with like Austin Theory and Grayson Waller on SmackDown, I guess. But I'm sure they'll build him back up to become a main event guy at some point in the future. I definitely see LA Knight being a world champion at some point. And I think a good starting point to get him back on track to that is a feud with CM Punk. I feel like there's really no bigger star that LA Knight could face, honestly, that's currently in the company, that would put him over the way that CM Punk probably could. And even if they made Punk a heel because of this match, because the fans don't want to see LA Knight lose, the fans love LA Knight, so to have Punk come in and beat him would be a really heelish move. I think you have that added benefit as well, where a change of character for Punk. and this current run with LA Knight has been going really well. I think this would be the perfect feud for LA Knight, because Punk doesn't really need a feud like this necessarily, but I feel like LA Knight does. And if LA Knight loses the first match, maybe you have that whole scenario where he calls out Punk for another match or whatever, and they could have a classic trilogy of matches as well. I feel like a lot of that could be really fun to see, because they're both really good on the mic, especially when you think back to, Punk's pipe bomb that he did and that sort of thing. He's well versed in talking on the mic, and LA Knight is getting there as well. He's doing really good with promos, and they're building him up really well through his promo work and that sort of thing. So just the interaction between the two of them just on the microphone alone, I think would get enough hype and interest in a match between the two of them that the fans could really sink their teeth into, I feel like. And that definitely also feels like a WrestleMania maybe like a night one caliber match or something. And finally, I don't know if this one's necessarily obvious. I mean, maybe they'll end up doing it, but I think CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes feud would be a lot of fun to see. Just because they were both former AEW superstars that sort of got disowned by the company. I feel like they could tie that in without mentioning AEW, obviously. They could have Punk mention, like, the company that you created didn't want either one of us, and now we ran back to WWE type of thing. They both have a similar path over the last several years. I mean, Cody didn't really retire from wrestling after he left WWE, but, like, he had issues with WWE and the way they were booking him as Stardust and that sort of thing. And then he left and went to like different promotions and that sort of thing, and ended up creating AEW out of it. Whereas Punk had creative issues with WWE as well, and left the wrestling world altogether, and then came back into it, went to the company that Cody Rhodes created. So I feel like there's a story to be told there between the two of them, just going off of the similarities between how they both left WWE and how they both returned as a totally different person. Like, Cody Rhodes was Stardust when he left the company, and now look at him. He's the American Nightmare. He's main evented WrestleMania against Roman Reigns. So it's like a totally rejuvenated character, and you see all the work that he's done over these years to show that he is this major superstar, and that it was a good signing for WWE to bring him back. And the fans are really behind him. He has a really good theme song, that everybody loves and everybody sings along to. And the same goes for CM Punk. So they both have that similar path that they've had over the last number of years. And I think that could make for a really interesting dynamic between the two of them. And then just to see them competing in the ring, these are two mega stars for sure. This is your John Cena versus The Rock type of scenario, I feel like. I don't know if these two fought each other elsewhere. I don't think they did. I think Cody was out of AEW by the time Punk joined it. So to see these two big-time stars competing like that, there's your WrestleMania main event. Whether it's for the world title or the Universal title or whatever, for Cody to finish his story, or just for a fun one-off match, that's definitely feels like a really big-time feud that maybe they could come back to somewhere down the line. But the starting point for it, like I said, would be this connection between the two of them, that they both have this similar story. But there you go, guys. That was my list of who I think CM Punk should face now that he's back in WWE. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. Who would you like to see CM Punk get into a feud with? And also be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. We will be planning on doing a video about the Royal Rumble as well, probably giving our predictions for that, coming up in January, so keep an eye out for that if you're a wrestling fan. Thank you for watching this video, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.